The Central Weekly, a weekly podcast from the Central Podcast Network. We're in the podcast studio. You've got Jon Henninger.
Did you almost say Lacrone?
I did. Did you feel
I
it?
could see the L on your lips.
And Jared Lacrone here.
Yeah.
And we're celebrating already because it is Easter weekend at Central. We're recording this on Good Friday.
It is.
That's right. It's a Good Friday. Like he's a good father. And we're excited about this because, gosh, I'm anticipating a huge weekend at Central. Again, we're recording this prior to the powerful weekend at Central.
Right.
If you're part of the Central family, you're going to be listening to this on Easter Sunday night. You've experienced Easter at Central, and you saw all that happened. Well, we're going to review it prior to it happening.
Nice.
And so here's the thing, too. We're a series within a series within a series. We're wrapping up our 6-week look and spotlight at what God is doing in missions around the world, missions and missionaries and families that Central supports.
Yeah.
And we've got Chad and Alicia Edwards from Taiwan. Do you like my accent?
Yeah.
Taiwan. That sounded good. But they are from Taiwan, and they've been there, get this, Jon, 27 years. Now, if you saw their little glimpse, their little clip online, you'd be like, 27 years, they look like they're 30. How is this possible?
Yeah.
They were born there. No, I'm just kidding. But here's the cool thing. They've got a great story to wrap us up. They've been there for 27 years. They've raised kids in Taiwan. They've done ministry in Taiwan. They've done a lot of different intentional, strategic things to help the people in Taiwan know about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's really great story. It's just really, again, small micro level things, but doing big things in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
And again, they've got big stories too, and they share those big stories. But again, just small stories about raising kids in Taiwan and what it means to be a missionary kid and now grown up, and now they're seeing the fruits of their labor, especially in the relationships. Because when you've been on the ground for 27 years, you've seen people develop, and now they're leaving legacies, and it's super cool.
And I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like Chad and Alicia have more than just a missionary that we support, but they have family ties to Mount Vernon.
Yes, she is. I think they'll say, I might say it wrong now, but in the conversation they'll have it right. But I believe her grandmother was a Timothina of Central Christian Church.
Okay,
So she's been in Alicia's been in the building when she was a kid.
Right.
She knows all about Central Christian Church, and again, this is a good story because these are two local people. You'll be proud of them, Jon, because they wore their Cardinals gear.
Did they?
Yep. They stayed up late with us because it was 9:30 their time. So
PM.
It was the 13 hours. I think 13-hour difference.
Wow.
So yeah,
they stayed up that late.
Yeah. Well,
9:30. Wow.
That's just when you're getting started.
Good night.
Okay. I think now that we've explained Easter, we've explained our missionary, there is something that we need to do to continue a tradition that we've started on the Central Weekly.
What is it? Knocking on fake wood?
No. Tap your
the can.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you would be on this.
Here it is.
All right, so the colors that I see are a lemonish, and I've not seen this, and a burgundy, or some call it maroon.
Okay.
So I'm going to say pineapple guava melon.
That is a really good.
Is guava melon even?
What does it sound? What does it sound like?
It sounds like pineapple guava melon.
Yeah, well, it's real close. It's pineapple passion fruit. Wow. I mean, you're pretty spot on there, bud.
What is a passion fruit? Have you ever had a passion fruit outside of a drink?
No.
Nope. Okay. Speaking of the passion, Jesus Christ. That's right. That is a transition from a can of sparkling soda. Here's the cool thing. Easter, again, this is us Friday talking about what's going to happen, but we've seen bits and pieces. So what this week looked like for us, our Holy Week, was Monday was WSIL recording. So we got to get together with the band and the singers, and we did the recording. So then what it looks like is what you're going to watch on WSIL at 9 a.m. on Sunday, Easter Sunday, is a special Easter broadcast. So we didn't have a 1 week delay. We did it right. Caden Vaughn is your MVP. Everybody works hard for Easter, but Caden's your MVP going into Easter, because not only did he do WSIL, not only did he do all of the graphics, the motion stuff on the screens, He did all the videos.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people helped him, but again, I'm just going to give the MVP honors to Kate. And I can do that on my side. You as the lead pastor, you cannot do that.
Okay.
But I can do that over here in communications.
Oh, okay.
But again, here's the cool thing. The stories that were told at Easter were super cool. And I just loved that not only did we get to push our next series, build this house. We'll talk about it a little bit more in that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But we were able to tell stories of how God has impacted our lives. And like you've said, and you've said this so many times over the last year in your sermons, that there is power in our testimony.
Yeah.
And there is power, just like the Revelation verse that
12:11.
Yeah, and it's again, and if we're not telling people about what God has done in our lives, people are missing out.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's this whole sermon, this whole weekend is about exactly that. I mean, so often we just keep it quiet, right? I mean, we accept the good thing, grateful for it.
Yeah,
don't talk about it.
Yeah. So let's go into your sermon. You have I did not know that. This is really cool when you and Jennifer talk, and I didn't know about him. Some of these names I didn't know about. Everett. 100-year-old Everett. That's so cool.
Atkinson. And actually, this is not from Jennifer. This is from some folks that come into church on I think normally Friday night. Yeah. And they said, hey, I think she said, my dad watches every single week. And so she sent me a picture.
Yeah, I love that. So,
he's going to be 101 in June.
Lord
willing.
And that's super cool that he's connecting with the gospel message. And I mean, you get all these texts about our online and TV viewers, and again, it's still neat to have this online and TV. It's almost to me, it's almost like an on ramp. You have on ramps on the interstate. You get on 57.
Yeah,
and that's what our WSIO ministry is for a lot of people. It's they're scanning or they've heard about it, and they give them a chance to check out the Central Family.
Yeah,
and then like you talked about at prayer this morning, Friday with our staff prayer time. We need to be welcoming. So when they get here, they felt welcomed, I think, on TV and online. They feel the presence of that powerful sermon, the powerful worship, and then they get here and they're just overwhelmed by God's goodness through the love of his people and just through a warm handshake. Maybe not a cold handshakes are the worst.
But on the flip side, overly warm handshakes feel weird.
Yeah.
I shake a lot of hands, and I know like there's a temperature you want.
You get some sweat in there.
Yeah.
But the worst handshake is just a weak handshake.
The limp fish.
And I know that sometimes that's going to happen. Just you don't get a good connect. A good connection.
Yeah.
But
I usually once a weekend, I'll give somebody the best handshake of the weekend award.
Oh.
I'll say like, man, that was a good connection. That's the best one of the weekend.
Oh, as the lead pastor, you did do that.
I do.
We need to get a statue.
One a week.
Yes. For Winning Edge. Here's the cool thing. I loved how you talked about, again, this whole lesson series is called A Credible Account. So you're looking at the credible accounts that are verifiable in so many cases. And I think that's a lot of times the world thinks, oh, those Christians, they have that make-believe story that they like to tell. But there's so many elements, specifically even about the New Testament, even the Holy Week account that we're talking about, Jesus entry into Jerusalem and all of the stories that are told about him and his followers. There is verifiable evidence through historical non-Christian accounts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we believe 2 Timothy 3:16 that says all scripture is God-breathed. We believe that. But even if that's not enough for you or for us, there is a bunch of human level proof. Everything, from manuscripts to archaeological digs that find cities and scrolls and trinkets and bowls and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean okay, let's talk about this because I've got a wife going to the Holy Land.
Okay.
You had a family that went to the Holy Land. It wasn't a great experience for them. Your dad got pretty sick.
He had a stroke,
but I mean, the Lord prevailed in that because he got home and he still got a little bit of
for sure.
I don't want to say reaction. That's not what you say.
But yeah, it definitely made a lasting effect, at least to this point. Yeah.
But have you been to the Holy Land, John Henninger?
No.
Have you ever wanted to?
I mean, like at some point I would love to.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not like, oh my God,
gotta go. Right.
But it would be, but the more I hear Maria getting excited about going, I'm getting more excited. And then Amelia, gosh, she would be on an airplane tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
If somebody said, here's a free Holy Land visit.
Right. And then she'd give the tour.
Yeah, she really would. And it's because, and that's a cool thing. I mean, I've said Holy Week a lot this already in our first 10 minutes, but that's what's on our mind going into Easter as Christ followers. And to set foot in areas that, okay, this is the Garden of Gethsemane where we believe that Jesus wept. Okay, this was a place where he could have had his last supper with his disciples. Okay, this is where we believe. And again, it's such a strategic area for so many different religions even, that it's just almost like copy over copy over copy of different things. So that's why it's amazing that we do have some of the archaeological evidence that we do have, because it's so like, okay, it's kind of like the Central Building where there's so many additions that, okay, let's get to the root of what was here originally. And again, there is some power. Maria's telling me of some testimonies of some people that she follows online that have been to and she goes, there's something about being there. And my I think she's done it twice. Her church in Effingham, my home church, they go a lot now. My lead pastor, Jeff, he takes a lot of people there. And it's funny because you never, it's like, oh, I've been there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like, I got to go back again. Yeah. And again, there's just something there, just something to be there where Jesus physically was. But what's even cooler is he's physically here with us now. And that's
for sure. Yeah.
It's funny because you go to the library and then have you seen that set of books that who is, and it says who is or who was? Because there's like, who was Jackie Joyner, or she's still alive. Who is Jackie Joyner Kersey? Who was Harriet Tubman? But like, there's the book out there that who was Jesus Christ? That's not accurate, in my opinion. Yeah. It's who is Jesus Christ, because he is living, and that's your whole message for Easter, that his life is verifiable, and his life is real, and his still going, and it could be for you too.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
He is who he says he is.
Yeah, the gist of it is the crucifixion was real, the resurrection was real, and that is really like, it doesn't matter what other scriptures we talk about. It doesn't matter what other stories we talk about. The Bible itself, all of it, cover to cover, hinges on whether or not Jesus really is who he says that he is. And, I use that scripture from 1 Corinthians where Paul said, but in fact, Christ was raised. And because otherwise it's useless what we're doing. It is all in vain. But we believe that it is not. We believe Scripture is accurate. We believe that Jesus came to give us life and life to the full, and his resurrection was just one more evidence that God intends for us to have real life as well.
Yeah, and you had 3 points, and you spit them out really quickly. Number 1, he rose from the dead. Number 2, his life can bring us life. And number 3, we need to witness about what he has done.
Yeah, so really that comes from those 3 scriptures, 3 verses, 3 lessons from that Matthew 27, the rocks broke up, ground broke open, the rocks split, the curtain was torn, the tombs opened, and
I want to talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. The whole curtain, that's pretty easy to explain. That's pretty cool that we have access to the Father, where once we did not have access through the Holy of Holies, and that symbolization. What am I looking for?
Symbolism?
Thank you. That is ripped from the top because it's saying God did that. He opened a way for us. I want to talk about the resurrection of the saints at the time of Jesus' death. Okay? That's crazy. And Caden and I were talking about that earlier. It definitely, they received their resurrected bodies at this time. Don't you think? You would think so. Here's the reason why I think they did.
Okay.
I don't think you got a bunch of zombies walking around telling the gospel. I don't think people would that would be crazy.
Right.
But it could have happened. I'm just saying in my again, this is not.
Yeah, sure.
But and what's it look? How many people were resurrected right there?
I don't know. Right.
Was it just a certain few? Was it all of the believers prior to Jesus' death? Like all of so like you have your linchpin moment there. That you had all of the resurrected people.
No, it couldn't have been.
I agree. It couldn't have been.
Here comes Abraham walking.
Exactly.
No way. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you think about, okay, the second coming, when Jesus comes again, that's the other. And so this is almost like a foreshadowing, don't you think, of his second coming. and when we all believers receive their resurrected body. Because that's the crazy thing is grandma right now, if she has passed, she is not physically in her resurrected body walking around the streets of heaven.
Okay.
She's in an intermediate state. Like Jesus says, you will be with me. Like he turned to the thief, he says, you will be with me in heaven. But then it also talks about when he comes again, that's when we receive our physical, everlasting bodies. So again, I don't know what this intermediate state actually looks like. Yeah, grandma might be walking around, but I don't think she's walking around in her physical, permanent, everlasting body.
Yeah.
So those people that that came from the dead at that point when Jesus died, were those their everlasting bodies? Or was it just kind of a body God gave them just for this moment? It just fascinates me.
I don't know. I'll give you my just gut level opinion, right? I don't think that it was, I think it was a resurrected earthly body. It was the body that they died in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you go into Jerusalem, nobody recognizes you.
Exactly.
Your story doesn't make any sense to anybody. You know, I mean, like, so the part of this testimony is what was dead is brought back to life, not renewed, but brought back to life.
Yeah. I loved how you said, Jesus, here's, I'll say this later, but the power, there's power there. And I think that's the thing that we underestimate with the cross, that we believe that if you just look at it at face value, a man dies on a cross. At face value. But if you look at what that meant, that the Son of Man was hung on a cross for our sins, and that shook the earth and brought people that were once dead to powerfully new life.
I think that there is this supernatural, there's just this supernatural craziness that happens at that moment because the physical life is being taken from the very one who spoke all of this other stuff into being. You know, I mean, like, and so there's this this spiritual, supernatural conflict. You know, creation that is literally in existence because the Son of God, you know, the Word was with God and the Word was God and God created everything through him. The very one who said, you know, land, let there be land, let there be light, all of this stuff, the very one who spoke it all is now hanging on an element of that very creation and void of physical life. And so there's just this whole thing going on and creation reacts.
Yeah. And it's funny because I keep hearing Phil Wickham's words. I think it's Phil Wickham that Friday. What was it? But Sunday's coming. Right? What's the word? What's that new song? That Sunday's coming. I've just been listening to it so long, and now I can't. I'm just going blank. But here's the thing: it doesn't end on Friday.
Right.
The Savior does. He gets off the cross. He's put in a tomb. But then the resurrected life that happens on Sunday is the end of your sermon. And there was the way that went and the way the energy that was in the room or will be in the room, even at the recording on Monday when we recorded it. There's just, gosh, it's amazing to know and to think about those two women that came and the excitement that had to be knowing that he was not there and the despair turned into hope. And the same thing can happen in our lives. And I think that restoration is key.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest driving point, at least I hope, of this sermon was there are really two groups of us listening. There's one group of us that needs to understand the power in the first place. We need to receive Jesus as our Savior in the first place, accept the life that he offers for us in the first place. There's others of us who have seen some life things. We've seen some things resurrected in our life, but like this story of people, of the tombs open and you know, people are raised from the dead at that moment of crucifixion and then resurrection, like they didn't stay in the cemetery, they went into Jerusalem, right? And so the driving force here is like, so often we receive good things, God does big things in our life, but we still are sitting on the tombstone. We're still hanging out in the cemetery. And like the next level for that, I mean, what I said in the sermon, or what I will say in the sermon, is that I feel like this Easter, Jesus is calling us out of the cemetery and into the city, out of the dark into the light. Let's start talking about the good things that he's done, understanding that it could be our testimony that helps lead somebody else to that place of life as well.
Yeah. And it was really neat because we're recording this on a Friday. Last night was First Thursday, and I didn't get a chance to stay to the end because Quincy was ready to go home. But Pam Minturn shared her testimony about being healed, and it was, gosh, and she was mad. I told her she was angry, nervous, because she was like kind of mad that she was called to do this. We get that way sometimes. God asks us to do something. We get a little upset because you're like, I don't want to do it. And she was like that because she was really nervous because she doesn't feel comfortable talking in front of people. But she felt the call that she's supposed to tell this story. And she literally said, the Holy Spirit has been speaking to me about telling more people about my testimony. And so for her to get up on stage, and she did it so eloquently.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
She did amazing. And again, Danny probably did good too. I just didn't hear him. But Pam was just able to say, again, she talked about, she still has cancer. And so the Lord might heal that cancer on this earth, but we know, and gosh, Maria threw something back in my face the other day. We were talking about, I forget who's healing, but as Christians, we will all receive healing from the Lord. It's just when. Sometimes we'll receive a physical healing on this earth, but we're guaranteed to, when we follow him, to receive an everlasting healing that will come at the end or the beginning.
And to be
totally
you said
honest, that to Pam,
to be sure, she said that, and I, because she talked about her cancer journey and just this overwhelming peace that she feels even as she takes chemo every day. And Pam's story. Sometimes the miracle is the new veins in the heart. Sometimes the miracle is the peace in the middle of the cancer journey. And neither one necessarily is more or less miraculous, truly. And I think sometimes as Christians, we say like, well, we're either going to get our healing here or we're going to get it there. And it feels like this cop-out, this Christian cop-out. And it's almost, and because I've struggled with that too, if we're going to get our healing one way or the other, why are we even praying about it, and I think that it's all this faith exercise to a point, I'm going to ask for it. I know what I want, but I also know that what I want is not always the best.
And he knows what you want.
And so I'm gonna ask for it because Scripture says, present your needs to God, thank Him for all He's done, and trust Him. And so it's this journey of faith where we are, where we're presenting our needs, but we are more resigned to His will than we are fighting for our will.
And I think, like you said, it's the journey. It's a faith journey. And I think those are action words. And I loved how you said that at the end and how you read that and you kind of italicized some of those action words because that's what God calls us into. He calls us into this faith to come alongside Him in this. It's not like, okay, this is your life. I've destined it for you. Go do it. I don't want anything a part of it. No, He invites you into this. He invites you into telling your story. He invites you in to tell people about how He healed you. He invites you to tell people about the bad times and how He gave you an overwhelming peace. Now, bring us into the Paninsky story. When again, I've seen this a lot of times in the editing stuff, and you have too. I think you did the first edit. And first of all, when you first see Nolan, to me, the tears start welling up because you see Nolan in the bed and he's looking at the camera and you see the miracle that is. And then you hear Hayden, and Hayden is in his genuine honesty got me so much because I want more people to know Hayden and I just wish more people knew Hayden than I think, a lot of people do. I'm not discrediting that, but it's just his heart is so pure and kind and humble. He is the epitome of a servant. And to hear him so eloquently tell that story at the end and what God has done and how He said Jesus is in the business of restoring things. He is in the business of miracles. if Easter does one thing for you, that you know that you are not alone in your struggles and that he is still working miracles. It might not be, and again, this is not a cop-out. Right. It might not be the miracle that you're asking for. You might not get that child like the Paninskis did on this earth, but you might get an overwhelming peace through that and a relationship that you didn't even think was possible with Jesus because of the steadfastness you learned through that journey. And again, their adoption, that happened in the waiting for a child. Like so many things that can happen even when we're not even expecting it, that he's in the business of restoring things and he's in the business of miracles. Not adoption, but foster care.
Yeah.
I'm just looking ahead and speaking that into life. But gosh, and a great way to end it. And it's funny. Again, this is us talking before. Brooke is going to sing that song right after the video.
Good luck.
Yeah, I told her she needed to go back with like noise canceling headphones and not try to listen and then just be fresh right at the thing. But that's our hope for you. Listening to this, listening to all of these powerful accounts from the Bible. Listening to these powerful missionary stories about what God is doing then, now, and still in our lives as Christians and in our lives. And there's so many just elements that if you haven't had a chance to listen to these 6-week sermons, go to our YouTube or centralnow.com. If you haven't had a chance to listen to these missionaries, all of them, go to our centralnow.com/podcast. Because again, we wanted to tell these stories because they need to be heard and they can be an inspiration and a testimony to what God is doing and he's still doing.
Yeah. Build this house.
Build this house. That's it. Next week, we're starting a brand new. What did you say? What's the line? I said it, but I can't remember. This could be the most impactful, pivotal. A bunch of adjectives there. Season.
I don't remember which adjective or which just descriptor, which action word. This could be the most. Originally, it was shaping.
It's really good.
Maybe formative. Maybe.
Give us the elevator speech for Build This House, the series.
It's basically Ecclesiastes 3:3. You know, we talked about this at the very beginning of the year that there's a season for building up, and the church, individually and collectively, has seen a lot of season of tearing down and life being taken from, but we are for sure in a God-given season of growth at Central right now, and it's this flywheel concept. You know, I mean, like let's not stop it. Let's do everything we can to capitalize on this momentum, capitalize for His kingdom, and build up our families, build up our community, build up our church, His church, build up our relationships, and so we're going to spend 6 weeks talking about how we can build up in Jesus' name.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because we haven't had like let's focus on us, not us as a church. That seems weird to say it that way, but let's just build this up because we've got a really strong foundation here at Central.
170 years. This year marks 170 years of ministry at Central.
That's great. I remember, here's the funny thing. I remember 160 years because you know why? Kid Depot, the new edition, was built. And little Lyric Henninger, she was part of the little shovel that did the edition.
Did we build Kid Depot at 160?
We did.
Really?
It's been 10 years.
How about
and
that?
10 years next year will be Central Serve Day. Will be the 10th year because we did the first in 2024.
How about that?
2014, 2024 will be 10 years. But
interestingly enough, I did not know that, Jared. I didn't know that about Kid Depot. So then 10 years before that is when we built the worship center.
So what's going to be built?
Well. What does God have in store?
But it is, even if a physical building is not built in this, maybe the spiritual building of us as a church gets built a new edition, just like that Ecclesiastes verse, Ecclesiastes 3. I love that. I think and again, let's not let this excitement get stale because like you said, the flywheel, it just keeps going.
Right.
And it just momentum builds momentum.
I stumbled on that book the other day again.
Yeah, I saw that on your bookshelf.
Yeah. Yep.
That was something we did as a staff 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
At least, yeah.
Just the kind of
it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was.
So,
yeah. So
4 years ago, at least.
So that was Easter. That was a credible account.
Yeah.
Let's get into the Edwards family.
Here come the Edwards.
From Taiwan, 9:30 at night, super late. That's late for me. That's bedtime. Yeah.
I mean, Golly, I hope they had the coffee and the caffeine.
They did.
Man.
It's a good conversation. We are going to throw it over to them right now, but we'll be back right after their conversation with some more exciting news about what's going on at Central. We'll see you back right after this. And we're back with the Central Weekly, and we're here with our sixth and final conversation to wrap up our Central-supported missions. And we have Chad and Alicia Edwards. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Doing great.
And so we're going to get into team expansion. We're going to get at your mission life in Taiwan. And I'm excited about this conversation. You were one of the first ones that I reached out to, but you ended up just being the last conversation we had. So... But I'm excited because I know a lot of people do know who you are, but we've got a lot of people on at Central because we're growing so much that don't know who you are. So I'm excited. Again, these conversations are great because you can only have so much time on stage or so much time in the atrium or in the center to have these conversations. These are life-giving conversations. And really, this whole series on site is all about the incredible accounts, these credible accounts in the Bible about how we saw God move in big ways. And I know that you guys see God move all the time in small and big ways there in Taiwan and through your family. So I'm excited to hear more about you. This is the elephant in the room. I'm going to bring it up. If you're listening to this podcast, the Edwardses are both wearing Cardinals. So you're going to be endeared to a lot of our listeners. I'm going to get through it as a Cubs fan, but I'll be okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to start like we started with the last conversations. We're going to start with rapid fire, get to know you guys, break some ice, and then we'll continue from there. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, Chad and Alicia Edwards, here we go with rapid fire. Favorite food?
Guava.
Oh,
Barbecue.
barbecue, going on the opposite side there, I think. Favorite vacation spot?
A little island called Shaliocho.
Ooh.
It's famous for swimming with sea turtles.
Same.
Same. Okay. Person in the Bible. I forgot to ask you this one. Person in the Bible that you identify with most.
Okay, well, I just am finishing up Joshua, and while I wish I was as valiant as he is, I just really resonate with how much faith he had with God. And when God said, hey, go there, he did it.
Yeah.
Led others very faithfully.
Chad, who you identify with most in the Bible?
Wow, that's a big question. Let's see. I'm going to say probably like Barnabas or someone. I feel like I'm kind of a under the radar kind of guy, not big and flashy, but kind of like the guy that kind of comes alongside other people and kind of works with them. So probably I'm going to go with Barnabas.
See, these questions really do a good job of telling us about you. You get a day to yourself. What do you do? If that ever happens.
If that ever happens. I would definitely want to be out in nature. We have a couple days break coming up and we're hitting the road, going to go to the beach. So.
Yeah, I'd say also just somewhere away from a lot of people, probably by a river somewhere, hear the water, look at nature. Yeah, that's
biggest fear. What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear.
I think maybe something to do with claustrophobia. Probably.
Oh yeah.
That's not my. I don't like to be too cramped up. Or I think, and sometimes just failing. You just don't like to fail, but obviously that's something that helps us grow. But
yeah, I guess I would piggyback off that second answer. Is just that. You're given a task and you have the right tools, but you're unable to complete what you're asked to do. So.
Yeah. And most memorable moment, first, maybe as a family and with the mission in Taiwan. Maybe those are the same. Favorite moment, most memorable moment, or one that just comes to the top of your head.
Yeah. So there's probably been a few in in our family, but I definitely think there's been a few vacations that we've been able to make some really sweet memories that even the kids will talk about today. So those times, those family times together.
Yeah, it's always special when you can. Sometimes they're here in Taiwan, or they're when we go back to the States and we get to be with the extended family that they're not normally with. So I think those are always just real fun, especially like maybe a Christmas. I think our kids spent 2 Christmases in the States their whole growing up years. So those were pretty special.
Yeah, I found that it doesn't have to be a huge vacation. It could be something simple, but something out of the norm that causes those memories to really just take hold. Super cool. Yep. Well, good job, guys. You're out of that hot seat. Take a deep breath. So let's get to know you guys, Chad and Alicia Edwards. Tell us, first of all, tell us where you're joining us from now, and that might help us know a little bit about. I know it's 9:30 about when we recorded this. You guys, it's your bedtime. So I'm grateful for that you stayed up late to talk to us. But yeah, tell us about you guys, where you're at right now, just to tell us, the generals.
Okay. Well, we are in Taiwan, which you've probably seen in the news a lot the last year. It's just off the coast of mainland China. It's probably about maybe a quarter the size of Illinois as far as size wise, and population 23 million. So a large population for as small a place as it is. And so
claustrophobia makes sense now.
We're located in the city of Taichung, which is kind of central west side of the island. And so, we've been here for 27 years, and this is home.
27 years?
Yeah.
27 years.
You're kidding.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
We came as infants.
No.
Yes, that makes sense. If you're watching this podcast or you're watching this clip, this is crazy because you guys do not look over 30. I'll say that.
Okay.
So, congratulations on that one.
We're into our second.
So Taiwan does good for the skin, I guess. We'll see.
It is very humid climate.
Taichung. Do I got that right?
Taichung.
With an N kind of at the end?
Like a O in
Taichung.
This has been really fun these last 6 weeks to do Portuguese, Spanish. I don't even know what they were speaking in southern India. But you guys really are, funny enough, I mean, you probably already knew that you might be the largest population where you're at. Now, because they were in a rural setting, the family that we spoke to first in southern, I want to say Indiana, southern India. And then we've got El Paso, and now there was some bigger places in Brazil that we talked to, but he again was in a rural setting on the Amazon River. So this will be a great conversation. Now, also a great conversation I just want to mention that we had in the Central Weekly last year was the Hinkie family, and they're from Japan. And that's the reason we didn't include them with our 6 weeks. They're good friends of mine. We've already had that conversation. So if you do want to continue in this central supported mission conversation outside of what we've done here the last 6 weeks, go back to that episode with the Hinkie family in Japan, because I think there's going to be some similarities, but I think there's also going to be some big differences in the cultures of Japan and Taiwan. So I don't want to confuse anybody, but maybe listen to the Edwards family and then go over to the Hinkie family later on. So let's go way back.
We want to give a shout out to the Hinkies. Our daughter is actually in the same mission as they are in Japan.
Really? So they're in something mustard, right?
Mustard seed.
Okay, that's cool. So she's in. Is she in?
She's in Hiroshima. She was in Tokyo for a year now. She's in Hiroshima.
And they just started their first church plant yesterday or Sunday.
Yeah.
So,
really? Wow, that's still fresh. And how old? Now let's go through those kids before we go to the beginning. Caitlin, and how old is she?
26.
26. Wow. Again, that's crazy. You've been in. Okay. I'm gonna stop with the ages, and then keep going.
Then Allison is 23, almost 24. She is married. She's been married for 2 years, and another Cole, Cole. And they live in Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
They were Ozark grads. And our son is 21, almost 22. And he's out in Arizona going to Grand Canyon University in Phoenix.
Cool. Okay. So the kids are out of the house.
That's right.
So when I say the Edwards family, it's really just the Edwards right now, at least in Japan or in the context of Taiwan. So
exactly.
That's super cool. So now that we talked about the two of you, take us back. Where are you guys from? I know that you're from it's in the area, from the Midwest, but take us back from there, and then talk to us too about how faith played a role in your life growing up, and lead us into, getting into missions, and how missions was that something that you guys always thought you'd do, or how did that go? Because I know when I'm talking to a couple, they're always intertwined.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You want to start out?
Sure.
You started before I did. So.
Yeah. So, my dad is a pastor. So him and my mom, raised me in the church, and so missions was always a part of our life. We always had missionaries in our homes, but I kind of thought, wow, that is something I would never do. My roots go back to Central, is that my mom is a Timothy from that church. My grandparents were, anytime the building was open, they were there, and I spent many summers at vacation Bible schools or just a part of that community. So that's where my roots come into Central there. My grandma was a part of the missions team for as long as I can remember.
And what was her name?
Evelyn Bond. Okay. So Vernon Evelyn Bond.
Yes, I've heard those names. I think I've seen those pictures before too. When we've had the fun stuff that comes out on Memorial Day last year, we got to see some good pictures. So that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So long story short, we met in college. We were both not thinking ministry at that time, but we were kind of running, and the Lord got a hold of our hearts at about the same time to say, hey, I have blessed you in many ways. And are you really just going to use that for yourself? Or how could you use that for my kingdom? And a missionary came to our university to share about Taiwan. And on the first day, he said, where do you see yourself in missions? Because we all play a part. And I confidently said, supporting from the States. That was my answer. And by the end of that seminar, the Lord had really broken my heart for this part of the world. And I didn't know what that looked like. But then just started seeking him and asking him, what do you want me to do with this burden? And I have been blessed to always know your love. And there is millions of people around the world who don't know you. And how can I be a part of what you're doing there?
Yeah. It's neat to know. Jon was talking about this last week in his sermon about the youth of David, and how that youth really played a good part into his boldness in his faith. And really, it's neat to hear so many stories of missions, how that story and in that heart posture started in college or around that area. Because you're those 18 to 22, you're forced almost to look, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? So it's so important to have those influences, those godly influences, and how it's so cool that they can really shape you for the rest of your life. And you're talking 27 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, going into college, for most of us we've grown up in the church, but there was something about, getting to college and realizing, wow, is this faith? Whose faith is this? Is it my faith? Just the family's faith, and I think both of us had that experience of, man, wow, we want to finally God got a hold of us, and we realized that we wanted this to be our own faith. And then just, man, campus ministry, that was just huge for us. Just the people that were able to pour into us at that time when we were seeking and had a lot of questions about life, didn't really know what we were going to do. And then just going on some mission trips. I think that was really key for us. We got to go to Russia, we got to go to Taiwan, and those were just really, wow, growing up in the Midwest, getting outside and seeing, wow, there's like some big stuff going on. And there's just seeing the lostness. I just didn't think we'd ever experienced seeing that many, just obviously lost and worshiping idols and just the stuff that you'd never even seen growing up. And that was super huge for just turning our hearts. And it kind of was a slow process that God worked on both of us, and then kind of brought us to the same place where we were like, you know what, let's do this together and see what God has in store. And so, we were fresh out of college, just married a year, and And here we are on an airplane to Taiwan.
Wow. And so now the Kentucky Christian College at that time, right?
Nope.
We are actually Truman State.
Oh, see, okay. I had my
product of the campus history.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were not, that was not on our trajectory when we went to school.
Now, Team Expansion, though, who you're with, that originated at Kentucky.
Yes.
Okay. At least I got that detail right.
Yeah, Bible college in Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about Team Expansion. How does that group work, and how do you guys relate to that as a mission, as in a family in Taiwan?
Okay. Well, it kind of came out of just prayer for sending teams. I think they just really had this heart to see, multiple couples working together and not just kind of like lone out on your own kind of thing. And so we got involved. We got hooked up with them very early on as we were coming into Taiwan, and then slowly just been a part of that culture, and kind of Team Expansion's just grown a lot in the last 30 years since we've been a part of it, and just watching them kind of slowly just get their vision knocked down, and just really focusing on, making disciples who can make more disciples, and just a very simple kind of reproducible model for the church around the world. And so we've just really learned a lot over the years, just from, different resources they've been able to give us, different trainings they've suggested for us. And then when we go back home, there's just a big family there that just prays for us all the time, prays for us, and they're behind us. And so really focused on those unreached groups that are still out there.
Yeah. I want to focus on your core, your core principles on how you do work in Taiwan. But tell us first, what was it like growing up in Taiwan with a young family? How did mission work, and how has it changed? Probably based on the kids' ages, and how did school go? Talk a little bit about that. How did your family play a role in your mission work?
Well, I feel like, we learn as we grow, as we go. When we came here, it was just plant a traditional church like we knew in the States. And Christianity, although it had been here in Taiwan for over 100 years, it was, we're still talking 5% or less believe in Jesus. The rest are all Buddhist, Taoists, have some sort of ancestral worship in their family. And so, we were just pretty much doing what we had been trained to do in the States here. And then I think the longer we have been here, we're just, you acclimate to the culture, you start learning, first off, we're into language study, learning this language. And that took at least 2.5 years. And we have a phrase here that you're living as long as you're learning as long as you're living. And that's how we'll be always in Mandarin. But just how the church can look here in Taiwan. So that has changed. And I think our family's kind of grown through that, from going from traditional churches. They love that. It's a both and. But then in more recent years, we've done more house church style, very simple. So they have that DNA in them as well. And so it's just really neat to see our kids now, figuring out how they want to worship the Lord and find that body of believers where they're located.
And I think our kids, Alicia got pregnant pretty quick after we got here. So we had our first child when our language was still, getting going. And then, so then we still don't know everything for how to
navigate that.
Yeah. So then, with each child, I felt like we gave them kind of a little bit different experience as far as schooling. Some of them went to like all Mandarin preschools. Our son, he even went on to did a couple of years in local elementary school in Mandarin. And so I feel like just watching your kids grow up in a different country that you grew up in was super exciting. And, and watching them grasp the language and the things so fast, and and be able to communicate. And that was just super encouraging for us to watch them grow up and just think of this as normal and not anything out of the ordinary. So I think it's been great for our kids, and it's really shaped what they're doing today. And it's really thankful God.
And with you guys, I mean, this is your life. It's so weird to say missionaries. Does that weird? Like, because this is your life. Taiwan is your life. It's almost more, it's like
we actually lived here longer than we did in the States. So
yeah. I mean, and that has to play really into the mindset of, hey, this isn't anymore I'm the stranger in this land. I'm just a part of this, and this is who I get to be. And this is my mission field, and it's no longer this abstract thing anymore, especially after this long. So, and Alicia, you started to go into it a little bit, but tell us more about the mind of a typical, Taiwanese, and how that Chinese culture plays such a pivotal role, even how they're separate, but yet still the same. And Chad, maybe you want to go into that a little bit too.
Okay. I just think, as first, when we were diving into the language, that really gives you an appreciation and a better understanding of another culture, and even how they approach life and the way they communicate together. But I think if you think about the Chinese, you don't want to make complete generalizations, but they are a very Taiwanese are a very hospitable culture. We feel very welcomed here, and yet you're welcome to a certain point, because we are different, and they see Christianity as maybe a foreign religion and not their own. And so I think probably the biggest blessing of living here this long is that we have developed trust, because it's not one of those things where someone's going to change the way they think overnight. So, developing those relationships and living out, and them seeing the way our family interacted and how it was different. If they don't know Jesus, they don't really know what love is, and they don't know how to forgive. And there's just a lot of hurt and brokenness in a lot of the families here that they just don't talk about. And, unhealthy relationships that come out of brokenness and all of those things. And so I think one of the ways that our family has been able to minister here is just living life with them. And then they'll say, wow, you guys love each other, or wow, you disciplined your child there, but you didn't lose your temper. And how did you do that? And so those types of questions, and when we're just doing life with others, that gives us opportunities to share the gospel and share the reason why we are different. It's not because we're foreigners. It's not because we're Americans. No, it's because we're Christians, and Jesus has changed our lives, and we're still not perfect, but he has helped us to be able to forgive one another and help each other and love each other and accept each other. So.
Yeah, the biggest theme for our Easter service this year, which you guys, I think I told you, will drop this episode on Easter Sunday. It's really the testimony that you had, the testimonies of the first witnesses of Jesus's resurrection went and told. And that is the key for you guys, and the key for all of us is to live a life that is a witness and is a testimony to what Jesus has done for us. And we got to be talking about it. And we just can't. We can't even just rely on them to see it. As much as we need to live it out so they see it, it's got to go to that other step. And that's what I want to talk about, you guys taking those next steps, being very deliberate and intentional in your ministry work. Two things: Discovery English School and Sports and English Camp are the two that I know about, but tell me more if there's something else that I'm missing.
Yeah, I feel like, especially since we moved down to Taiwan, we've really tried quite a few things to just, as God has kind of opened up opportunities. And the camp was something that was started 15 years ago, and just with the desire to give the local students an environment, kind of like, you talked about Oil Belt, and just kind of some of those camp experiences that we had, where you kind of get away from your normal routine. You're there for a week, you get to build in those relationships and just kind of hear things on a different level. And for the kids here, they're just from the time they're in elementary school, they're on this education track that hardly lets up and gives them a break and gives them a chance to think about anything important. And so when we started this camp, that was our desire to create an environment of love and encouragement, and where they can hear the gospel for the first time, interact with Christians, teachers, local missionaries. And that's where we get to partner with our churches back home. We've had a group from Central come over and serve with us at camp, and just allowing those kids to have this experience that they've never had before, and just watching the walls break down as the week goes through, as they start to hear about God and what he says about them, and what these big questions that they haven't thought about before. So it's been that's been a big just way that we've made tons of contacts and sown so many seeds through that outreach. Now the videos, we've kind of taken a break from that a little bit, but that was definitely born out of a prayer for this new area that we're in, and how God kind of just linked us up with a Christian, a person of peace that was wanting to create videos for the education program down here in Taichung, and want to know if we'd be willing to create some curriculum videos that they could use in all the schools. And it's like, they wanted us to use the Bible. So it's just like,
these are public schools asking this.
Yeah.
That's
exciting. You want us to do what? No. And so,
you wouldn't ask about the states to do that.
Yeah. So it wasn't even on our radar. It wasn't even part of the plan, but it was like God said, hey, let's do this. So we spent several years helping them create some curriculum videos, and ended up allowing us to go into a lot of local schools and do clubs, do things with local students. And so we've done that for quite a few years. I think one of the biggest things right now that as far as my role here now is kind of moving. There's a discipleship training called Zume.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that. It's an online discipleship program that kind of came out of Team Expansion and a couple other missions working together. And I got in on the early translation project of that, getting it into Mandarin here. And as a result of working with that translation project, kind of ended up getting in charge of all the translation of the Zume training into other languages. And so now I get to have all these calls with these people from different countries that are working on getting this material into their language. And so that's been really cool. And so just taking on more roles with the gospel ambition. The umbrella org is not really an org, but name is Gospel Ambition. You can go to their website.
And how cool. I mean, that's the crazy thing about us, churches in the States. We're always looking for more and new and fresh and unique ways to tell the classic story of the gospel. And what does those discipleship models look like? And I really think those discipleship models should change and be adaptable. They shouldn't be the same model you used 30 years ago. And now it should be the same text and the same
truth.
But it should be adaptable. And it's really neat to know that you've got something that you're able to use, those tools and it's really neat just through the English camp and the English school, and now that you're finding these tools that God has given you to be adaptable and be super intentional to the people, the students and the people that are just hungry. Now, am I right in the fact that the American culture is attractive in the Chinese, like for those students? Do they want to know more about Nikes and NBA? And I know those are kind of maybe some talking points that start conversations.
Yeah, I would say with the youth in Taiwan specifically, I think we have a lot more. Taiwan is still very open to the Western world. We don't have any limitations as far as that goes. So I think there's definitely, with each generation, as we've seen over our years here, everyone's kind of more open to new things. And I like a lot of the older tradition that grandparents, especially religious tradition, it's definitely kind of become a lot more nominal or we don't really believe that stuff. We just kind of do it because So there's just a lot of the influence from the West here for sure.
Because I think too, we could see some similarities that's a lot of times those, as generations get away from those sacred religious things, they almost just come tradition, and you're doing them still, but you're not really, it's not so much as an idol. It's just a thing I do, but it's easier to almost replace that with something that's fresh and brand new and life-giving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just the family structure here makes it that jump really the hard thing because of the ancestor worship and that whole gamut of their belief system. It's almost rejecting grandma, grandpa. You make that kind of a faith switch. So that's truly the thing that we need to always keep praying for the Taiwanese.
I think for you guys, and go ahead, Alicia.
No, I'm just praying for entire families. You mentioned what was the most memorable thing here, and as far as what's happened in our ministry, and I think one of the first families that came into our church, and the wife first became a Christian, and then we did Bible study with her and her husband for a while, and then he finally became a Christian, and he was a son in a family, and that's huge to be the oldest son in there, and that responsibility. But they have raised 2 children, and that they are now just walking vibrant lives following Jesus. Even the oldest one, she's in Mongolia serving right now. And it shows the power of a family.
Yeah. When that
whole generation has changed, and so the hope that brings. So those things never get old. Like, I think we've seen that over and over, but it's when the entire family places their faith in Jesus, and what that does, that legacy of faith is passed on. So
I think that's why it's so important in those discipleship models to include the family, and to know that when you change a dad and a mom, that's going to change generations. And that's our prayer here, and I know it's your prayer too. And that's so cool that you can see that fruit now, and that you've been there long enough that I feel like this has been a theme through your conversation. But that's what it's wisdom brings, and that's what time and like you said, trust in a people group and being there for a long time. You're building trust, you're building relationships, and you get to see that fruit come from years of doing that. And just to think, I mean, you've got now kids in the mission field, and you've got kids around the globe doing God's work, and that's super cool. Any other stories you want to share that's memorable, like those credible ones that you're like, this is something that when things get hard in Taiwan, this is what I remember and it helps me?
Yeah, one thing from camp sticks out to me. I remember it was the last day of camp, and we were just kind of the final day of challenge. And hey, does anybody? I was trying to figure out how to kind of bring everything to a close, and I had this, I don't know, impression that maybe someone wants to tell their story.
Oh, cool.
And so I kind of threw that out there to the kids, and it was kind of dead silent and not sure what. And then
typical.
Then all of a sudden, this one kid kind of raised his hand, and I was like, all right, come on up. And he was like super shy. He was like shaking, and like the whole auditorium just went like dead quiet, just like, what's this kid gonna say? And so he just kind of shakily got through his sharing about, what God had done in his life that week. And then
his family was in the middle of a divorce, and like just brokenness and hard things, been picked on. Like when we were talking about kids going to school, and there's so much competition. Every kid knows their number, and that places a value on them. Mm-hmm. And what we want to do in that camp is say that, no, your value is what God says. You are so valuable. And so he's sharing,
and then he gets done, and then another girl raised her hand. She comes up, and it ended up being this kind of like story after story of these kids that were just up there sharing their hearts. And then I think that year it ended up, it was like, I feel like 20 some kids came forward, and it was just like super, like it was like nothing that I could have ever imagined. And it was all because of their story. They were willing to tell their story. It wasn't about anything I had said. It was it was God using their simple stories, and they all could relate, and it was awesome how God worked that out. And so just remember to tell your story, because someone needs to hear it.
Yeah. And that's an important thing for us. And I'm glad that we're able to bring you guys in to tell your stories. Because our hope is that just how, that talk of missions back in college shaped you, and just how those camps have shaped those young people in Taiwan. And we have to be ready and willing to tell our story, and and just give witness to what God has done in our lives. Because there's power in that we kind of underestimate, that because we have ourself in that. So we underestimate a little bit. We're like, okay, nobody's really going to attach to that. They're not going to listen. But gosh, that's the strongest thing. Like you said, Chad, even more than what you had prepared and what, took from the Lord and did all your Bible work on. No, it's like, no, but his story was the one that got everybody standing. And that's super cool. So I think you touched this a little bit, Alicia, but anything we as church family should be praying for you guys? Any specifics?
Yeah, I feel like we're constantly just asking God what he wants to do with us in this stage of life. Kids are out, things have changed a little bit. And even recently, COVID has been very hard on ministry, and, the things that we were able to do, we weren't able to do. And so you just had to really pivot and just keep asking God, what do you want us to do? How can we connect with people? And I feel like he just keeps opening doors to, helping in young married couples' lives and putting people in our paths, putting even these young students where we can just keep discipling and asking those hard questions, being that mom and dad in their life. And again, just trying to be intentional in our conversations with others, and asking them really how to dig into God's word and encourage them in that way. Sometimes they want to grow. Sometimes they want these prayers answered. I'm like, are you in his word? You've got to be in God's word. And so just trying to be faithful. So asking God to just continue to put people of peace, people who are wanting to hear the good news, and share that with them.
Yeah. How can we learn more about you guys? What's the easiest way for us to maybe even contact you if they have questions, or learn more about the ministry work?
Yeah, I don't know how you usually post
I'll in the description.
I can give you a link. It's got a way you can opt into, if you're interested in like kind of monthly prayer updates. We got that available. That'd probably be the easiest way to stay connected with us.
Missionary newsletter.
That's right.
It's still going strong. Well, what we're doing, I really appreciate this conversation. I appreciate your time. And again, to me, it does my heart good. And I hope and I know it's doing other people's hearts good that are listening to these conversations. They're making mission work less abstract and more real and visible in their lives. And just thank you for taking the time to do that. But we're not going to let you out of the hot seat yet. We're going to take a quick break. Basically, we play a little music. We let people take a break, and then we'll have you guys back, and we'll have the question that we ask all of our guests on the Central Weekly. How has God been working in your life lately? Don't go anywhere, Chad and Alicia. We'll be right back. And we're back with the Central Weekly, and we're here to finish out our conversation like we finish every conversation on the Central Weekly, asking our guests the question, how has God been working in your life lately? Chad and Alicia, it's your turn. Go.
I think for me, I think God continues to teach me about just how big his kingdom is. And it's so much more than something that I am trying to build or create, and I think it's so easy for us as a church sometimes to get kind of focused inward on our thing that we're coming up with. And I think especially in Taiwan, where we're such the minority here, and we're surrounded by other mission organizations, other missionaries, people who are trying to do the same thing. And there's often times where you just like, wow, we're not as far apart from each other as sometimes we think, and trying to do things our way. And I've just been really encouraged as of late of just the opportunity to serve together with with other Christians here, who may or may not be from my church background, may or may not be from our mission, but just I can see in them the love of Jesus and their desire for the people of Taiwan to know him. And it's just like, man, let's just do this together, And cool. So we just had some great opportunities to partner with some local churches recently, and just them inviting us in, just that trust that they already have for us, and just opportunities to lean into their small groups and to their trainings. And so, yeah, I'm just really just humbled by God and the way he can use us when we're kind of just like, let's just put our own agendas away and trust him to do what he wants to do.
Unity above all else.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Alicia, go ahead.
I'll probably have to talk a little bit about the elephant that you probably maybe
Cardinals?
No, not that elephant, but just our political tensions recently, and what that is doing in our conversations, in our kids' conversations, and how they think, because Taiwan is their home, and can they come back if something would happen, and what are we going to do as a couple if things heat up, or what precautions we need to take, and how to be mindful, be good examples to those around us, but not also put anyone in danger in any way. But I think for us, it has really just encouraged us to even be more intentional. Like before, like we've been here for so long, so it's easy to think, hey, we could be here forever. But in thinking, okay, what DNA, what principles, what truths do we need to be putting in the lives of those around us, that if we are here or if we are not, they can still be continuing to follow Jesus. And so, we ask that of ourselves, daily. And then also just, I think it's heated up our timeline or shortened the timeline, because we just don't know. There is some things that we just don't know in the future. So.
Well, I'm super grateful for your time and just to hear your hearts. I'm always these conversations. It's in the morning. I've, did my stuff with the kids. It's late for you. And it's like, I jump into these conversations just all of a sudden, and I don't know you guys very well, but yet God always prevails in these conversations. And he always has so many nuggets of truths that I think other people will hear, will bear witness to, and because I think you guys are bringing, as much as we don't know how long you'll be physically in Taiwan, there's a legacy there that you've started, even with your family and the people around you, that will not end. I'm just grateful for this time. So thank you, Chad and Alicia Edwards.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We'll see you in June.
Oh yeah.
And we're back with the Central Weekly episode number 58. We're super, super thankful for the Edwards family, Team Edwards.
Yeah, Chad and Alicia and co.
Yeah.
It's just great to hear from them, and they have a long history of ministry, and Central has a long history of partnering with them, and Lord willing, that doesn't change, that we're able to continue to support.
And like they said, just right at the end, they're going to be here in June. They said that's on their docket to be June. So maybe this is a chance for you to learn more about the ministry, learn more about what's going on in Taiwan. So here's the thing: we talked about Build This House. That's coming up next. We're going to change a little bit of the dynamic of Central Weekly for that 6-week series. We've got some fun things in the works. We might be doing some more question and answers. We might be bringing in some guests, or maybe hearing from people on a micro level about what God has done in their lives. We'll just hold on there. That's the big news.
I've not heard.
The big news is kind of news.
When we're recording this, I've not heard it yet. But did Chad, did he tell you about his grandfather?
No.
The
no
barber?
Grandfather talk. No barber talk.
No.
Is this leading into a joke?
Edwards Scissorhands.
I was just like, weird. It's like there was a wall there, and I just kept running, and I turned, and boom, and hit the wall.
Sorry, buddy.
All right, thank you. And hey, if you're listening to this on Sunday, happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
If you haven't heard it, happy Easter, and we're grateful for the resurrected Lord, because he brings a resurrected life to us. See ya next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.